I would like to share my thoughts on having a mild speech impediment. I'm 51 years old, and I actually didn't even realize that I had a mild speech impediment until I was about 40. And I found it out through, guess what, YouTube. People pointed out that I couldn't pronounce certain sounds properly sometimes on YouTube videos. Now, I don't know if my speech impediment will even show up here in this video because it comes and goes. I notice it comes out more when I'm tired. It comes out more when I'm speaking quickly and unconsciously. When I'm more conscious of it now, I tend to enunciate my words more carefully. But the letters that I get wrong, S's and F's and TH's, I get asked all the time, why did you quit being a therapist? I was a therapist for a little bit over 10 years. It was a job that I loved. I was so passionate about it. I gave my heart and my soul to it. Sometimes I've noticed it on the telephone also when I'm calling and talking to someone I don't know. They don't understand what I'm saying. Oh, did you just say something? They think I said an F instead of an S. And it's, I've been teased for it on the internet. You could call it internet bullying. Oh, why should we take you seriously? You can't even pronounce therapy correctly, ... And I know it does hurt a little, but I would say overall, I kind of don't care. I think if I'd been teased about it when I was a kid, or especially when I was in high school, I think I'd have more of a complex about it. I think I would associate it more with myself in a negative way now. It's sort of like, I'm an adult after what I've been through already. This is really the least of my worries. I even kind of like it sometimes when I hear it. Also, it helps me that I've had some friends along the way who have much more visible speech impediments. And the reason that I think that really helped me is that I actually never even cared that they had this. I just took it as this was part of human variation, like having a different eye color or having freckles. Or I had a friend when I was a kid, a boy, who had 2 different color eyes. And I remember thinking, it's kind of cool. Or here's another one. I have 2 uvulas. I'm not going to open my mouth, or maybe you won't be able to see it. But in my mouth, on the inside, most people have 1 uvula. I have this rare variation that I have 2, like 2 little punching bags, and called bifid uvula. It's just part of human variation. I kind of liked it when I was a kid. Ooh, I figured it out. I have 2 uvulas. Well, I guess I consider my alternate speech pattern to be part of this. But I'd also like to talk about where it came from, where I think it came from. Does this apply, what I'm going to say, does this apply to all people with speech impediments? I don't know. Maybe, perhaps. Is my split uvula, my double uvula connected? Is my mouth somehow wired differently? Maybe that's it too. But I think it goes back to some really terrible things that happened to me very early in my life when I was learning how to speak, when I was learning how to pronounce my S's and TH's, my th's and s's and th's. I was tortured back then. I don't know exactly what my parents did to me. I know my dad did hit me once, but I don't know that was it. I think it was a nanny. I've talked about that nanny who tortured me in ways that it's lost to history. I wouldn't even know how to find her. I don't even know her last name. And I just know that she tortured me. And I later told my mom about the fact that she'd tortured me, but I didn't tell my mom what actually she did. A little bit, that she would leave me in the house. And I'm sure she threatened me and may have physically tortured me. I really don't know. I can only speculate. But I think it's connected. I think I had some crushing blow. And I think more realistically, crushing blows that happened to me psychologically when I was learning how to form those letters comfortably. And I think it thwarted my process. It thwarted my speech development. And at some level, when my guard is low, when I'm tired, maybe even overwhelmed, those hurt speech patterns come back. It's like a post-traumatic expression. It's like it's just a sign, a little notation. Ooh, something happened to you back then when you were learning these things and you didn't quite learn it right. Now, when I'm more conscious, when I'm more centered, when I'm more awake, I can think more clearly and say those words and talk about therapy more clearly so that people can more clearly know what I'm saying. But I think at other times when that unresolved trauma bubbles up to the surface, it's like this is one way that it expresses itself. And I do wonder if that's true with others. And I imagine, they could do a scientific study and ask people, who were considered to have these so-called speech impediments. Did you have a history of early childhood trauma? Did you have a history of having trauma while you were at that developmental stage of learning how to pronounce this word or this sound properly? And people might say yes or no. But here's one thing that I think makes this very difficult to study, and that's that a lot of people have no clue what happened to them when they were young. They don't remember it in any conscious way. Their body remembers it. And I think sometimes that's the interesting thing. Their body, for instance, their speech patterns could be the actual memory. That's the expression of what happened to them, the marker, the reminder. But in terms of conscious memory, who remembers? And so many people don't even know anything about that happened to them, good or bad, in their early childhoods, let alone the most torturous, horrible things that happened that they had to split off and dissociate, especially if it was done to them by their caretakers, heaven forbid, by their own parents. So you could ask their parents, were they traumatized as a child? And their parents, maybe who are the ones who did it, who say, no, nothing bad. You had a great childhood. You just have to be grateful for all the good things that I gave you. Whereas maybe the parents were the ones who were actually torturing them. It was my parents who put me in the hands of this terrible nanny. They knew she was a rotten person. They knew she did bad things, but they didn't care because they wanted to go to work and they wanted to have someone who was low paying, who would look after me. And so they didn't want to see, they didn't want to know. But as it happened, my mother later once just randomly came out with what I had told her. And I told her this long after this woman was fired. So I think it's indicative of a lot of people not actually being able to consciously be the ones who can actually record what happened to them factually, so that they don't even know. It's very hard to make this connection, but I would speculate that for a lot of people who have speech impediments, it does have some root, some deep and painful and ugly historical root in what once happened to them. And then I'm going to say this also. What about healing? What about getting into the deep healing, the deep grieving about what happened then? Well, I would say conceivably this is the way to change an historical speech impediment if it is caused by this early childhood trauma. But it's really tough to get into this early childhood trauma. I think it's hard enough for many people to heal any kind of trauma, even adult trauma, but let alone to get into the things of very, very early childhood, those deep and most painful feelings, to access that, really, really tough. I wouldn't be surprised if my speech patterns are better as the result of all the healing that I've done, and I think I've even done some healing of this very early childhood trauma. But I think it's the hardest stuff to get to. And that may be a part of why the easiest way to heal that trauma, to heal the easiest way perhaps to open us up to being able to fix our speech impediments, if you want to call it something to be fixed, would be to heal that. But it may be the hardest to get to of all.